Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's Gavin from Balls to You, and as his title suggests, we're going to talk about your breeding males and just some general male information for you guys to take away and just digest this information. Maybe it'll help you, some helpful tips. I'm pretty confident it will help you because it does help me through the breeding season. So let's talk about that. But before we do, I want to have a little bit of a rant. Back in the day, you used to have to, breeders were very reluctant to give people information regarding helping them to breed ball pythons. And for me, you know, as I've told many of you or a few of you regarding the story of the whole Balls to You, I reached out for some help and got some very negative responses, and some I didn't really get a response at all. So the whole thing that I wanted to do was try and help people with, you know, learn myself, make the mistakes, and then give you guys the information that worked for me. What I found was a few breeders from back in the day were very reluctant to give me information. However, the minute I was interested in a snake, they were all at my, yeah, they were my best friend. You know what I'm saying? So the whole Balls to You thing, excuse the sign language, was basically, you know what, I'll work it out for myself and I will help people. So off the back of that, there's a couple of things so I have people who have contacted me and asked me if I will go and help support them or advertise, if you like, their GoFundMe page or their Patreon page. If you want to do Patreon, if you want to do the GoFundMe thing, that's entirely up to you. But the one thing I won't do is advertise that sort of thing. So, like, for example, these people are sort of like, they want a GoFundMe page to afford an animal. To me, that's wrong. You know, if you can't afford to keep an animal, then really the GoFundMe page and the Patreon page isn't the way about it. Those are, I see it as more of a fundraising to try and help someone in a dire situation, not to try and help them to afford to pay for an animal. You know, so that's wrong, and that's, you know, some people have messaged me and I've basically turned them down in a nice way, and they've sort of took the hump. Well, guess what? I don't care. Balls to you. You know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm here to promote good, healthy hobby, whatever you want to call it. The last thing I want to do is be, you know, helping people who can't afford animals to basically get an animal that they can't really afford to keep. And then once that GoFundMe page stops or that Patreon stops, what's going to happen to the animal? So to me, I have to have I have a responsibility, and I won't do stuff like that because I don't believe in stuff like that. Simple. And that also goes back to, and again, this is my opinion, okay, it goes back to the Patreon pages. When people are doing Patreon pages and they're sort of doing stuff like, you know, oh, you know, go over to my Patreon page, or you'll get first access to this, or I'll share information on the Patreon page. To me, that's almost like going backwards. That's a bit like going back to the old school way of thinking, you know, paying for information, if that makes sense. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. If those breeders or people want to do that, that's fine. It's just I keep getting asked, and I said that I would address this. I would address all the questions that keep being fired at me. Why don't I do a Patreon page and, you know, sell this information that I help the hobby and that I help people with? And that's simply because that's not me. The only thing I do, as you guys probably aware, my channel is monetized. Now, I'll be honest, you can go on Social Blade and see how much I earn from this channel, and it's about £70 thereabout a month, which it's not a wage, you know. It just may pay for a little bit of bedding, you know, it may pay for some disinfectant, whatever. But all that does is it's just a little bit, you know. You guys, when you watch my channel, it costs you nothing, okay? It costs you nothing. All you have to do is really watch an advert, and the advert pays for that information, if that makes sense. Okay, so basically this information is free to you. I don't ask any money, I don't want any money, but if you guys want to watch an advert for a few seconds, that will obviously help, that will help. And but no way is YouTube for me a living. This is, for me, it's an information platform. I want to give information, I want to help people, I want to show my projects, I want to show the animals, that's what this is for me. So I don't want to make any money from like a Patreon page or the information that I'm giving out. For me, that's sort of reverting back to how things used to be. And I don't know, maybe I don't know, I just don't see it as being a positive thing. I'd rather help people rather than ask people for money to pay for it. But like I said, if you guys want to watch an advert on one of my videos, obviously the sponsor of that advert or the advertisement sort of pays, I think it's 0.00 of a penny, it's nothing, but it's a little bit of something, and I keep getting asked, why don't I charge, why don't I charge people for the information? And that's because that's just not me. And I had a bad experience back in the past, and I just felt it was very unfair. So the whole balls to you thing was basically me saying, balls to you, I'll help other people. If you're not willing to help me, I'll learn it myself and I'll help people. So little rant over. That's not a knock at anyone, I'm just saying my point because I keep getting asked various questions, so I'm just going to get that out of the way. So let's get on to breeding males, or males in general. Okay, a lot of, back in the day, again, we used to think, or there was this concept of having, let's say 10 males and 20 females. That's okay, there's nothing wrong in that, and the concept of having more females to males was accepted, it was the done thing. However, over the years, I've actually found that some males and females aren't compatible. And I know that sounds crazy, but have you not noticed when you put a male in with one female and he doesn't lock, you take him out and you put him in with another female and he locks? That's a compatibility issue, okay? And that's why sometimes, again, back in the day, breeders, they used to have 50 snakes, 50 breeding females, and only 25 of them would breed. And I'm not saying it's just down to the male, I'm just saying that the male may not have been compatible with that female, or vice versa. So really the only way I can combat that, and I've noticed I have more success, is if I have a backup male. Now, a backup male has been proven to work for me a number of times, and a few people have reached out to me who have watched the backup males and have made me talk about the backup males, and it's actually been successful for them. They've actually got a clutch of multiple animals where they've got the best of both worlds. Okay, so backup males for me is as important as the main male. So you may have one main male that you want to put in with that female, but don't be surprised if that male or that female doesn't lock, or the female doesn't go. Having another male in there, or a backup male, may induce her to go on and produce eggs. So always, my advice, I've got multiple males, and I try and have a backup male for every female. And so my ratio would be, let's say, for every one female, I've got one male. Okay, but that one male may go to 2 or 3 females, but then I'll have another male that'll also go to the same 2 or 3 females. Okay, does that make sense? I hope it does. So for me, bit of advice coming into the new breeding season is always try and think, if that male and female doesn't go, have you got a backup male that you can put in, and you may be able to produce another combo that maybe you can take your project down another way as opposed to this way. So backup males is number one. Number two, most males will tend to go off food. Okay, now this is a known issue, and I've been experimenting over the years with various different things, but what I've noticed which does work, and I'm not saying it works on every male, but works on majority of males, is to So let's say you're feeding them a rodent of that size, make it smaller. Okay, give them a smaller item of prey. That works. I've noticed, I don't know, 100% of my males which aren't feeding during breeding. Let's just talk hypothetically. What I've noticed is I offer a smaller prey item, and I mean small, to the point where you probably wouldn't see it in their belly. They take it, and I would say 50 to 60% of them males who wasn't feeding actually do take it. Okay, so if you guys are worried about your males going into the breeding season or through the breeding season that they're not feeding, try and offer a smaller prey item. Okay, and don't be afraid of offering a mouse. A lot of people who may feed rats to their snakes are worried about offering a male a mouse, or a mouse to their snakes, and with females it's not really a good idea, because there's just not enough protein or enough fat content in that mouse to sustain a female. However, with a male, it's enough. It's almost like having a bit of a sandwich, you know, it's enough. So if you guys aren't, obviously if you're feeding rats, I would always advise, you know, try feeding smaller African soft-furred rats. But if you can't get them, don't be afraid to try a mouse. At the end of the day, something in their belly is better than nothing. Okay, so that's something that does work for me, and everything that I'm going to speak to you about the backup males, the feeding, really does work for me. Okay, this is something that it works, and I just want to share this information with you guys. Okay, so backup males and food, those are, you know, smaller prey items. Those are the two things that, you know, really do work for me. Okay, the third thing is I get asked about how long do I leave a male in with a female, and what's the general process between his first lock and when you put him in for his second lock. Okay, a lot of people have got their own ways. How I do it is I put the male in with a female. Obviously I raise the humidity in the tub, okay, raise it really high, and then I'll put the male in with a female. Then what I do is I will check the next morning and see if they're locked. If they're locked, I'll leave them together until they separate, and that may be 1 day, 3 days, a week. I leave him in there, and the minute he's left in there, I take him out. Now the day I take him out and put him back in his hide or back in his tub is the day I start from. So in other words, if I may now put him back in with that female 3 or 4 weeks down the line, depending on how many females he's actually going to. Okay, so he goes in, he comes out, I'll wait 3 or 4 weeks, and then I'll put him back in with that same female. Okay, so in that time period, he's going to have time to rest, he's going to have time just to chillax, whatever, and I will also offer him, once a week, I will offer him smaller prey items. So when I'm feeding the hatchlings, I'll feed the males. Okay, so I try and give prey, I'll give them the smaller prey just to try and give them a little bit of something in between locks. So 3 or 4 weeks, I then introduce the male again, and I'll follow that process until basically 4, 5, 6 months, until they actually start to progress in the way of glowing, ovulation and eggs. As long as he's feeding, and again, some females will actually take longer than 4 months. They may take 5, 6, 7, 8 months, sometimes in some females, to get to that glow before they go stage where they ovulate and drop a pile of eggs. So a lot of people, again, back in the day, we used to go, a breeding season was from here to here, when actually it's not from here to here, it's actually from here to possibly here to even further. So a breeding season is basically down to a female. So with introducing that male, let's say once every 3 or 4 weeks, you're not going to do any damage. Okay, and if it's feeding, you're definitely not going to do any damage. And if that female's not quite ready, that's okay, you can just keep going. Okay, eventually you will find that happy medium. You will see that one female, if you've known her long enough, if she's bred for you long enough, she's clockwork. You can tend to work out exactly when she's going to go, And that's something, again, knowing your animals. So we're going to keep on the males because this is a male video, and this is already up to about 16 minutes, so I'll try and trim it down a little bit. So feed, turn the feed from that prey item down to something smaller. Okay, backup males, have a backup male, have a backup plan. Okay, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Simple. And then also what I want you guys to do is, like I said, if you want a bit of a guideline, every 3 or 4 weeks you're going to introduce that male in with the females. Some people do every shed cycle of that female, which again is fine, it works, you know. This is what I find works for me. Secret on helping you guys breed your males to your females. Okay, so if you want to help me, guys, please go ahead, hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and also hit that thumbs up button. Okay, hope this helps, guys. Take care, and I'll speak to you guys soon.